Das Wort hat jetzt für die Fraktion der Konservativen Herr Kollege Callanan.
Europe needs a new direction, and that direction cannot be based on old ideas. Europe needs a new thinking. Now, they're not my words, Mr. Barroso, they're yours from the equivalent speech last year. The problem, of course, that yet again you haven't delivered on any of the big promises or any of the grand rhetoric that you've delivered year after year. Your chance to deliver that new direction has passed. The question now, I think, that we have to address is whether your successor will be able to deliver any of the change that the EU so desperately needs. Next year, the Commission will have a fresh leader, although personally I am not optimistic that he or she will come up with any fresh ideas. Indeed, many of the applicants for your job are here today. It's like a giant hustings meeting. Commissioner Reding, who I think has moved to the front bench now, is clearly running as the federalist candidate, producing more eye-catching babble every day that goes past. Commissioner Wren could be delivering the speech next year, although I suspect if he did, we'd all have a bit of a late lunch. And if Commissioner Wren gets the Liberal nomination, what about poor Mr Verhofstadt? What's he going to do? Perhaps he could challenge Mr Schulz for the Socialist nomination. I'm sure he'd feel more at home in that group. In fact, I think I'm one of the few people here who doesn't actually want to do your job. I'm perfectly happy with the one that I've got. The problem, of course, is that none of these potential candidates on show today represent any new ideas. They represent the vested interests of the past, the people of the European district in Brussels rather than the people of Europe. And next May, the choice won't be about anonymous candidates from political groupings that nobody's ever heard of. It will be about whether you want to merely shuffle the deck of cards or throw the deck out completely and start afresh. The essential flaw of the EU is that it simply doesn't trust the capacity of people and markets to overcome problems. Problems, we're told repeatedly here, can only be solved by more Europe. If somebody falls off a ladder somewhere in Europe, we need a new directive to solve it. People are not allowed to be trusted to decide their own working hours. They're not even to be allowed to take up e-cigarettes, to name another topical example. And when EU lawyers say that the financial transaction tax, so beloved of so many of you, is actually illegal, as they did yesterday, that doesn't matter, because nothing, even the law, should stand in the way of further European integration. We need a new Euro-realist direction with different ideas. One that says that patriotism is healthy. To be proudly German or French or Polish is not necessarily anti-European. The concepts are not antagonistic, and to want a new direction for Europe is not anti-European. The real anti-Europeans are those whose idea of change in the EU only means moving further in the old, failed direction. The real nationalists are those who force us to accept a European nation that the reality shows that nobody in Europe actually wants. And you know what? We've tried the old interventionist, centralising, socialist type approaches, and it may have been appropriate for the 1950s. Today, it is indeed well past its sell-by date. Let's try something different. Let's try a new approach. Perhaps we could rediscover the principle of freedom that many in Europe fashioned for the world, of opening our markets, of embracing enterprise, of eliminating the very many vested interests in the Union. Next year's elections will offer us an opportunity, not to advance European political parties and their candidates, beloved of many of us, but nobody in the real world has heard of them, but to give people a true choice, not about who you want steering the tanker, but actually whether you want the tanker to go in a different direction. Many of us want change. All of the polls indicate that the people of Europe want change. Next May, they'll have a chance to make a stand. They can say that they don't just want a new president for the EU, they want a new direction for it. Thank you.
Das Wort hat jetzt für die Vereinigte Linke Herr Hadjigeorgiou. Nee, Moment, Augenblick, Herr Hadjigeorgiou. Ich habe schon wieder gepennt. Ich hatte massiven liberalen Gesprächsbedarf mit Herrn Callanan. Ich mache das auch hier wieder nach Eingang der Wünsche, Herr Watson.
Thank you, President. Mr. Callanan has in his group 3 members who represent Gibraltar, and yet he said nothing of the frustration over the summer of the rights to free movement of the people of Gibraltar, or the harassment they've been suffering. Does this suggest that he does not think this is important? And would Mr. Callanan welcome the fact that Prime Minister Cameron picked up the telephone to President Barroso and said, "President Barroso, please help me on this issue"?
I commend Mr Watson's opportunism in raising the subject of Gibraltar. He raised it again yesterday. There must be an election coming up, perhaps. But the Conservative members in my group do an excellent job of representing the people of Gibraltar. He knows that I agree with them. The actions of the Spanish government have been disgraceful. Actually, the people that they're hurting are the people of Spain, the poorer parts of Spain, who actually want to cross the border into a free and prosperous Gibraltar and actually make a living and earn some money for their families. So this is, I'm sure, designed to distract attention from the many domestic problems that Mr García Magallo is suffering with his Prime Minister in Spain, and I hope that the problems are resolved soon.
Vielen Dank. Ich kann jetzt, meine Kolleginnen und Kollegen, ich kann jetzt keine Gibraltar-Debatte hier zulassen. Das tut mir aufrichtig leid.
Mr. Callanan, you said, making a joke about possible competitors for the Commission election, that you are not interested in that job, that you are very happy with yours. Let me tell you very frankly that I think even if you were interested, you could not have a chance to be elected for President of the Commission. And you know why? I'm not saying that happily, because I think increasingly your party and your group is looking like the UKIP and the Eurosceptic anti-European group. And I start to have some doubts that you are going to be elected yourself in Britain if it's not UKIP that is going to be the first force in the British elections. Because when it comes to be against Europe, the people prefer, between the original and the copy, they prefer the original. That's probably why they are going to vote more for Mr Farage than for Mr Callanan. And this I don't say with any kind of satisfaction, because we have, even if we have some differences, we have worked in many areas very constructively with Conservatives, the British Conservatives and the Conservative group. We have worked together for the internal market, for reform. We have worked together against some kind of regulation. We have worked together in many areas, including free trade. But this is an important point, I think, because if those forces that are pro-European, or even those that are not really pro-European but constructive, have the same speech, the same political attitude of the anti-Europeans, the Eurosceptics, the populists, in that case, they will win the next election. So my appeal to you is to make the case for Europe.
Das Wort hat jetzt für die ECR Herr Callanan. Herr Callanan, who?
Thank you, Mr.
Please,
President.
with pleasure.
Can I first of all thank Mr Barroso for the unsolicited electoral advice for my party. It's a bit rich for the unelected head of the European Commission to give us electoral advice about how to pay for elections, but I suppose that's typical of him. Well, he's spoken for, I chatted up 55 minutes this morning in total, and of course he played his usual trick of having something for everyone. There was a little bit on a commitment to subsidiarity, which I welcome. I'd like to see it in action, but nevertheless I welcome it, and of course all the usual guff about more integration being required, more Europe being the solution to our problems, accompanied by also the usual scaremongering that somehow the alternative to ever closer integration is the trenches of the First World War. Come on, Mr Barroso, nobody seriously believes that anymore. As usual, your speeches this morning were long on rhetoric, but your time in office has been very short on action. I really believe that those of us who believe in less Europe, in less integration, are actually starting to win the arguments in Europe now. Even Mr Schulz, in his interview in Reuters yesterday, I was amazed. You said, if they quoted you correctly, that the EU can't do everything, and what you can do locally, you should do it there. Well, of course, we welcome the sinner that hath repenteth, but never mind, that's, we should appreciate from where it comes from. Mr Barroso, your grand rhetoric, then the journalists in the press room have a terrible habit of playing buzzword bingo with your phrases to see whether you come out with your favourite phrases. I have to say my favourite from this morning, which I wrote down, is that you said we have to shape the new normal. Now I hope that makes sense in Portuguese, because I really don't know what it means in English.
Herr Callanan, wenn Sie anfangen, meine Interviews gut zu finden, dann muss ich irgendwas falsch gemacht haben. Also ich passe beim nächsten Mal besser auf. Das Wort hat jetzt Frau Harms.